Hello and good morning. My name is Jared Slotich, and I will be one of your hosts here today. I see we have a lot of people still logging in, so I'm going to go ahead and give it another minute before we get started. All right, looks like we've got quite a few attendees today. Really good turnout. So I think we'll, at this point, get started, and we'll roll the intro in. Okay. All right, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Q2 2023 Cofense Phishing Intelligence and Quarterly Trends Briefing, where we will walk through some of the key phishing threats, tactics, and trends observed during Q2, and give you the opportunity to ask some questions about the latest findings and observations. First, a couple housekeeping topics before we get started. After we walk through today's topics, we'll have a Q&A session. So we'll open the floor to audience questions. And in addition to that Q&A at the end, you can also ask questions at any time throughout this session using the Q&A window on your console. It should be on the right-hand side. Also, on the right-hand side, you will also find some links to helpful email security-related resources should you seek further information on some of the topics that we're covering today. Additionally, this webcast is being recorded, so everyone here today will receive a link to the recorded session once the webcast has concluded. This will include the Q&A session, so you can use it for further reference. As I'm sure many of you know, this is presented in tandem with our Q2 Phishing Intelligence report that we published recently. So you can also find additional information to some of the topics, to all the topics that we're covering today. And now to introduce our team for today. My name is Jared Slotich, and I am the Intelligence Operations Manager here at Cofense. I will be here supporting Max, who will be leading the majority of this conversation. Max Gannon is our Senior Cyber Threat Intelligence Analyst here at Cofense within the Intelligence Department. He and the rest of his team are responsible for the excellent content that you're going to see in in all of the Cofense intelligence reports. So I'd like to, at this time, welcome Max and thank you for giving us your time and expertise today.
Thank you for having me. All right, so to start, we will be taking a look at the overall phishing threat landscape in Q2 of this year. We will cover both some of the overall trends and some more specific trends around malware and delivery mechanisms. Then we will take a look at some of the strategic reporting we did in Q2. Next, we'll take a look at some of the credential phishing trends we investigated in Q2. And lastly, we'll give a brief outlook for Q3 and the rest of the year. As you can see, credential phishing indicators of compromise increased. Specifically, they increased 10% in Q2 and increased 85% from the same quarter last year. We will talk more about it later, but SuperMailer is legitimate software repurposed by threat actors to send large batches of customized credential phish. Campaigns using SuperMailer rose an impressive 87% in Q2. The use of compromised domains to deliver malware via embedded URLs increased by 25% in Q2. I'll talk a little bit more about this statistic later on. Net Support Manager RAT, which is a RAT sometimes used by advanced threat actors, reappeared, and we saw an 82% increase in campaigns using it in Q2. The malware delivery mechanism JS Dropper rose an impressive 240% from Q1. PDF documents continue to represent the most common file attachment chosen by threat actors, representing 42% of all file attachments appearing in Secure Email Gateway, or SEG, protected environments. First, we're going to cover what is actually reaching the inboxes of end users. We cover a large number of threats bypassing SEGs each quarter. This includes both malware and credential phishing. As you can see in the image on the left, we have the SEGs bypass, and on the right, we have some recent threats observed in those environments. Here we highlight some of the malware that bypasses SEGs and really shouldn't, given how the emails delivering malware are often more obviously bad than those delivering credential phishing. We publish this information on our SegMist page on our website, along with credential phishing emails that bypass SEGs. We have very specific images and little write-ups about each of those to give you a better idea of what's going on. Some of the malware we list here, such as Agent Tesla, Quackbot, and NetSupport Rat, were seen in large volumes and actually were the most common malware family in their tape overall. Here we have the types that I just mentioned broken down. Keyloggers, information stealers, and remote access Trojans are pretty self-explanatory. The banker malware type covers specifically malware that targets banking credentials and typically has web injects or other tools specially prepared for when a victim visits certain banking websites. Loaders are used to install or load additional malware once they are in place. These are the kind of malware often seen delivering second stage payloads like ransomware, so there's something you definitely want to pay attention to. Many malware that fits into other categories, such as rats, can deliver additional malware too. But malware in this category specifically focuses their capabilities and their business model on being able to quickly and undetectably upload malware to compromised computers. In Q1, the most prevalent malware was dominated by Emotet, and therefore the loader malware type that it belongs to, which took up a remarkable 80% of the top 5 malware families. With the disappearance of Emotet in Q2, the loader type has dropped to last place at only 1%. The top family in the loader type was Amati, which was delivered primarily by attached PDF files with links. The other rankings stayed more or less the same from Q1, with the top family in the rat type changing from Remco's rat to NetSupport Manager rat. And we saw that all across the board, a lot more of NetSupport Manager rat. Here we have a breakdown of the top 10 malware families seen each month of Q2 by volume. You will notice that the first place from the last slide, Agent Tesla Keylogger, consistently maintains its lead throughout the quarter. What is interesting is the spike in Formbook and Quackbot in May in the middle there. This directly corresponds with JavaScript-driven Quackbot campaigns and is also correlated with a direct spike in credential phishing email volume in May. The top delivery mechanisms in Q2 saw drastic changes from those seen in Q1. OLE packages and WSF downloaders, which were the top 2 in Q1, have completely disappeared. Instead, JS droppers, which deliver everything from Quackbot to NetSupport Manager rat, rose 240% and became the top delivery mechanism. CVE 2017-11882, which is used to deliver a large range of malware, is most known for delivering Agent Tesla Keylogger and Formbook, and it became the second most common delivery mechanism. CVE 2017-11882 usually appears somewhere in the top delivery mechanisms each quarter. This is because the broad range of malware it is used to deliver and its consistent popularity. It is still popular despite there being a patch out to prevent its execution, which tells you a little bit about how many people have actually applied the patch. Here we have a breakdown of the top 5 malware families delivered by CVE 2017-11882. As I mentioned previously, Agent Tesla Keylogger and Formbook are in the top 2 positions. It is important to note that this also includes delivery chains, such as when CVE 2017-11882 delivers a VBS downloader, which then delivers Formbook. While this graphic helps to make it easier to understand how popular CVE 2017-11882 is as a delivery mechanism, it is also important to note that it delivers other things that simply weren't in the top 5. Some of these other things include A310 Logger, Async Rat, Ave Maria Stealer, and Azeralt Stealer. Although these families don't make up a significant portion of malware delivered by CVE 2017-11882, they're still worth noting because they give you a better picture overall of how broadly CVE 2017-11882 is used. Here we have the top file extensions seen on attachments found in seg-protected environments. As you can see, PDFs make up the most common malicious attachment file extension appearing in seg-protected environments. They can be used to deliver everything from Quackbot to credential phishing. HTML and HTML files, in second and third place, totaled 30% of all file extensions, and can also be used to deliver a broad range of payloads like credential phishing or malware such as Ursnif. SHTM and SHTML files, coming in fourth and sixth place respectively, are basically HTML files with a different name, and they are able to deliver the same sorts of things as HTML files. .zip files increased slightly from Q1 as the focus shifted to password-protected archives. The Office file extensions of XLSX and DOCX are often seen with CVE 2017-11882, which makes their consistent presence here not particularly surprising. Here we have a bit of information about the geolocations of the command and control, or C2 servers that we have seen in Q2. Tracking C2 servers provides insight into a range of malicious cyber activities across the globe. These C2 nodes can deliver phishing campaigns or command malware, often receiving information and exfiltrating data from infected hosts. The only significant changes between Q1 and Q2 were that C2 nodes increased slightly in Canada and decreased slightly in Great Britain. This is actually pretty unusual, as most quarters see significant changes in the countries represented. Next, we will cover our strategic reporting, including a flash alert that we released. As a whole, our strategic analyses in Q2 were focused on emerging TTPs, while our flash alert covered a specific incident that we were warning about. First, we are going to cover our strategic analysis on the sender email addresses of phishing emails. Threat actors try their best to make phishing emails look authentic, unsurprisingly. For example, in this image, we have an example email purporting to be from spoofertest@gmail. This could have just as easily been changed to the CEO of your company at Gmail. In fact, the email was specially crafted using a tool to make it look like it was coming from the Gmail domain, when it in fact was not. While this is convincing enough for some people, it can also be easily detected by automated tools. So what is a more convincing way for a threat actor to get an email through a seg and into the user's inbox? A more convincing way would be to actually send an authentic email from a compromised account at that trusted domain. A trusted domain is any domain that is recognized and trusted by the recipient. It is not just the sender's address domain that is used to add to the believability of these emails, but also legitimate domains within the URLs embedded in the email and used to distribute phishing content, such as SharePoint URLs. Combined, these elements create legitimate-looking and trusted emails, which allows the emails to reach inboxes, bypass segs, build trust with the user, and increase the chance of a successful compromise. In strategic analyses, we go in to discuss this a little bit more in depth, especially about utilizing compromised accounts and other ways of appearing more legitimate. A man-in-the-middle, or MITM attack, is an adversary's attempt to steal information by inserting themselves between victims and their legitimate expected destination. Threat actors combining credential phishing with man-in-the-middle attacks have been another evolution in the threat landscape recently. In this context, rather than setting up one fake login page, the attacker lures victims to their web server, which will broker the entire authentication process between the user and the actual destination, as seen on the right of this graphic. If successful, threat actors can use the harvested usernames, passwords, and session cookies to gain access to a victim's account, and even bypass multi-factor authentication. An important aspect of these man-in-the-middle attacks is that the kits to set up a credential phishing page with a man-in-the-middle component are fairly cheap and pretty simple for threat actors to deploy, meaning that we can expect to see even more of these kits in the future. In the strategic analysis, we discuss a bit more about the technical aspects of how a man-in-the-middle attack works, as well as what can be done to prevent it. In early 2023, an increasing number of credential phishing URLs in emails reported to the Cofense Phishing Defense Center, or PDC, have included a unique string, SF_rand_string_lowercase, seen in the top right of the table. The inclusion of this string is a mistake threat actors made when crafting credential phishing emails using a legitimate email newsletter program named Supermailer, which I mentioned before. You can see some of the other common unique strings associated with Supermailer functions on the right, as well as a brief description on the left. The error of including that string occurred in a small subset of what has turned into a high-volume credential phishing campaign. By combining Supermailer's customization features and sending capabilities with SEG evasion tactics, the threat actors behind the campaign have delivered tailored, legitimate-looking emails on a large scale to inboxes spanning every industry. The monthly volume of this attack has more than doubled in 3 out of the past 4 months. Even now, we are continuing to see Supermailer campaigns. Hopefully, it is only a matter of time before SEGs adapt to handle this relatively straightforward and distinct pattern of URLs, and they begin blocking credential phishing emails sent by Supermailer. However, as can be seen by the threat actors' rapid adoption and abuse of Supermailer, it is only a matter of time before threat actors find another legitimate software to abuse and use to send credential phishing, especially now that they have seen such proven efficacy at reaching SEG-protected inboxes from a publicly available tool. In the actual strategic analysis, we go a little bit more in depth with this, as well as give you a better idea of what to look for in case your SEGs don't update and don't keep up with these trends, which unfortunately does happen sometimes. An evolving threat of credential phishing activity targeting Microsoft Office 365 credentials was observed reaching enterprise email inboxes protected by SEGs. This activity is categorized by several key components that make it stand out from other campaigns. These key components include abuse of Cloudflare and CAPTCHA and IP proxying services for efficacy and anti-analysis, as seen in the image. Another key component is the use of phishing services attributed to the seemingly defunct phishing as a service operation called Caffeine, which features an API for email validation. Another key component is that over 120 unique phishing domains created using the bulletproof registrar R01-RU, hosting thousands of phishing URLs. For those of you who don't know, bulletproof hosting is a hosting service that is resilient to complaints of illegal activity and is typically beyond the reach of law enforcement. These phish use a Russian registrar known for ignoring law enforcement or abuse complaints. Emails within this activity set are designed simply, using an embedded link, usually an open redirect, to redirect the user to the credential harvesting page. URLs of these credential harvesting pages have followed certain patterns within the past year. We discuss these patterns a bit more in depth within the strategic analysis. These patterns often change after a period of time, with the most recent and biggest change occurring in April 2023. Email subjects for these campaigns range from notifications about passwords and messages to tax themes. These campaigns are ongoing, and given their usage of a registrar that is unlikely to respond to law enforcement, we can expect them to continue for the foreseeable future. They might have some minor adjustments, but they continue to use this Cloudflare, CAPTCHA, and IP proxying services. In this report, we looked at URLs that were embedded in emails that, when clicked, downloaded malware. This is distinct from links that lead to credential phishing, as malware files are typically larger and require a bit more dedicated hosting services. Embedded domains hosting malware fall into roughly 3 categories: threat actor created, compromised, and abused. Threat actor created domains are domains created by a threat actor before a phishing campaign is initiated and are used in the campaign to deliver malware. They are typically used by more advanced threat actors, are not highly effective at bypassing SEGs, and are typically highly effective at tricking victims. Compromised domains are domains that have had some portion of the resources compromised and used to host malware. They are used by threat actors of moderate to advanced skill levels, are moderately effective at bypassing SEGs, and are moderately effective at tricking victims. Abused domains are legitimate services such as Google Docs, which are being abused to deliver malware. They are used by threat actors of any skill level, are highly effective at bypassing SEGs, and are highly effective at tricking victims. Although the categories are consistent with those seen in credential phishing, the ratios and the makeup of the domains are different. For example, only 6% of all compromised and created domains used in email embedded URLs to deliver malware from January to May 2023 made use of subdomains. However, as described in our strategic analysis on tailored subdomains and credential phishing campaigns, from 2022, over 69% of the credential phishing campaigns use subdomains. Bit of a difference there. As you can see in the image, compromised domains make up the majority of embedded domains delivering malware. This makes sense as they are the average domain. They are used by threat actors of average skill level. They are moderately effective at bypassing SEGs and are moderately effective at tricking victims. We can expect these trends to fluctuate over time, especially when we see increased campaigns from threat actors targeting a specific industry. But the qualities of each domain type, such as the threat actor skill level, SEG bypass, and effectiveness at tricking victims, will remain consistent. This matters because it can help you quickly determine information about a campaign based solely on the embedded URL that delivers malware. We go into a bit more detail in this strategic analysis, cover additional attributes of domains, and cover some examples of abused domains that your team can look for. The Remcos Wrap malware baseline is part of our ongoing series of malware baselines for popular malware families. These baselines should be valuable to analysts, but can also provide some insights if you find yourself wondering what's so special about a certain malware that keeps topping the charts. Remcos, which is an acronym for Remote Control and Surveillance, is sold as a remote access tool technically, but realistically, it sees more usage as a remote access Trojan, or RAT, which provides an attacker with the ability to remotely manage an infected system. Remcos allows threat actors to run keyloggers, take screenshots, exfiltrate files, dump credentials, upload other malware, and more. It was first advertised in hacking forums in July of 2016. Since then, more functionality has been added over the years to provide stable access to remote systems. The current version is still being actively maintained and sold online on publicly available web pages. This is despite the obviously malicious nature of Remcos. Due to its active maintenance, simplicity of use, and efficacy, we can expect to see continued usage of Remcos. In our flash alert, we covered a phishing campaign delivering a relatively new malware family referred to as Picabot, which was observed by Cofense Intelligence and Cofense PDC in inboxes that are protected by SEGs. The Picabot family was first identified publicly in February of 2023. We are now beginning to see successful email proliferation. Picabot is an advanced malware family, absolutely full of anti-debugging and anti-VM techniques, and can be used to load additional malware once it is installed. The Picabot campaign, interestingly enough, used an infection chain that is very similar to those used to deliver Quackbot. Since Quackbot has been more successful at reaching inboxes than any other malware family in the past year, we expect that Picabot campaigns will also be successful if they continue to use the same delivery techniques as Quackbot. Now we are going to talk about some of the overall trends in credential phishing that we observed in Q2. Here's a chart on the right detailing the trends we saw in credential phishing volume in Q2, as well as a few callouts for specific items of interest on the left. Supermailer-generated campaigns rose 87% in Q2, as I mentioned before, leading to a distinct increase in credential phishing volume halfway through the quarter. At first, this graph may seem a bit illogical, as Q1 ended with the highest volume shown, but Q2 started with a particularly low volume. However, as is sometimes the case, there was, in fact, a significant drop-off in credential phishing activity towards the end of March and start of April. Despite this drop-off and the overall decrease in credential phishing volume in Q2, credential phishing IOCs went up by 10% in Q2. This is directly tied to continued improvements in our reporting process that enable us to identify more IOCs and consolidate them into fewer reports. You can expect this trend to continue as we refine our process and deliver more IOCs. Here we are going to talk about the top-level domains, or TLDs, seen in credential phishing. When we talk about stages here, stage 1 on the left is for URLs that are embedded in the email. Stage 2 on the right is for URLs that are redirected to or that host credential phishing pages. TLDs used in stage 1 were fairly consistent with Q1 totals. Since stage 1 URLs are included in phishing emails, Threat actors tend to use domains that belong to trusted services or otherwise appear legitimate when examined by SEGs and users. As such, despite a nearly 5% drop from Q1, .com domains still dominated in Q2 at just over 58% of the total. The .net domains climbed by almost 5% from Q1, which is a surprising amount when the most common change is only a few percentage points. URLs in Stage 2 tend to be more diverse since they are generally subject to less examination by SEGs or other security measures. The .com TLD is still on top at 41.7%, while .ru is still the second most common TLD, used in over 11% of Stage 2 URLs. Newcomers to the top 10 include .dev, .site, and .top, replacing .tk, .me, and .info. Here we are going to talk about the top .com domains abused in credential phishing, which includes both Stage 1 and Stage 2 domains. Several of the top domains are almost always near the top, as they represent trusted services like Adobe, Microsoft, and Google, as you can see here, which are unlikely to be blocked by SEGs and therefore more likely to be used by threat actors. Two new top domains made the top 10 list in Q2, vk.com and myqcloud.com. A less common domain, myqcloud.com, made a sudden appearance in the top spot, accounting for 3.43% of .com URLs. The domain represents Tencent's content delivery network and demonstrates how threat actors can make heavy use of even a relatively new trusted platform. The other new one that made the list, vk.com, is a Russian social networking site and made the list because it was often used as a redirector in the high-volume supermailer campaigns in Q2. And I'm going to hand this over to Jared now.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, Max. I think it is really interesting seeing the top 10 domains that you had there and how they shift over time. I think that part of one of the major trends that we have been observing recently is the continued and actually increased usage of legitimate domains within the Stage 1 portion of the deployments. I think it's pretty apparent that why they would use that, because it is legitimate, so it evades the first initial malicious check that anybody would see. But yeah, seeing how it shifts over time is definitely something that you and the rest of the team have I know you guys have kept your thumb on the pulse. So with that, I'll cover a couple of the predictions that we are kind of suspecting are going to be the case for Q3 of this year and beyond, actually, and add a little bit more flavor and context for each. So our first prediction is that in Q2, we saw remarkable developments in phishing emails that were tailored specifically for targeted users of organizations. So think you're more going into the realm of a more spear phishing, more tailored content. It's in the early days of phishing, we saw very generic messages being the greater majority of the traffic. But as tools are developing more and more, and some of these toolkits serving as force multipliers, we're getting a lot more tailored content from the operators. Specifically, the operators responsible for the supermailer generated credential phishing campaigns that Max previously mentioned. They use that software's template feature to automatically craft emails that feature the users, the target email addresses, and the organization names. It's really not a new technique, but seeing the ease and the simplicity with which they can do that has directly correlated with the massive increase in this type of volume that we observed this past quarter. In addition to the email addresses and the organization names, for example, though, we're also seeing the threat actors generate unique images in each email. So we're getting a lot more diversified and robust emails, phishing emails that are targeting users. These images, though, are, as I'm sure everyone here is suspecting, they can be handcrafted, but also with the machine learning and the AI, the advent of AI now, it's becoming just easier and easier for not just groups of operators, but even perhaps solo operators to generate very complex and very convincing instances of phishing attacks. As they hone their techniques, I think that we can expect to continue to see this uptick in this type of activities. Greater level of detail in these tailored phishing emails, even in high volume campaigns. Traditionally, spear phishing is low volume, highly targeted, very curated, with the enablement of these automation tools to again create that convincing content. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that in very high volumes. And this does constitute a distinct change from only seeing it in those rare instances. So for our second prediction, I think we think it's likely that individuals or even small scale operations dealing with credential phish may be under increasing pressure from law enforcement and market forces. We've all been feeling the effects of the economy and the events on the global stage, but specifically law enforcement and other authorities have dismantled several notable threat actor marketplaces recently, including the Genesis market in April, breach forums in late March. And so without them, small operators will have a more difficult time connecting with customers. However, that being said, at the same time, certain prominent credential phishing services have remained operational, primarily like the larger ones. In a recent strategic analysis that Max and his team published, they highlighted the caffeine service still running. Although they no longer maintain a public website, they are still very much operational, and we're still seeing tactics and traffic volume from the caffeine service traditionally attributed to it. Another service that we've investigated is the Bullet Prof link. This continues to run openly, as Max covered here. Apparently, unfazed and unconcerned with exposure to authorities, law enforcement, etc. We believe that there is some safety in their hosting location, without being too explicit there. They are traditionally outside of the reach of a majority of law enforcement entities. So I think that's obviously, pretty easy to make the connection of why we're seeing so much continued activity from there. So despite these exceptions, though, most of the large services run in ways that make them difficult to take down. Smaller operators, may have trouble matching the features offered by established credential phishing services, but including tailored email content, the bulletproof hosting, like Max was mentioning, multi-factor authentication capture, and easy-to-use management of their campaigns that they are maintaining. But in the long term, the legal risks and barriers to entry could drive credential phishing operators, I think, into more centralized or organized teams, akin to like the Conti ransomware organization of lore and yore. So for our third and final prediction here, we do some long-term analysis here too, right? To try and use that for some of the more predictive analysis moving forward. And accordingly, in the past 2 years, we've seen a growth in the number of PDF files among malicious file attachments in secure email gateway protected environments. We've seen it go from 15% in Q2 of 2021 to over 40% increase every quarter since Q2 of 2022. So as Max displayed in the chart there, one of the bar charts, PDF has a extremely high volume, at least from this past quarter. And we believe that that's only going to increase. The PDF is really kind of an encapsulated vector. And what I mean by that is that several different types of exploits can be used, embedding that malware or those malicious URLs and redirect links within the PDF itself. The PDF file is is an accepted, widely used format of file for everything from the academic environments to business in every market. Because of these features, it makes them attractive as a delivery mechanism. For example, PDFs, they can include images and formatting to make them appear more legitimate, which can be difficult to accomplish with content embedded directly in emails. Think, for example, most SEGs or endpoint malware programs will be able to capture any malicious attachments to the emails directly themselves. However, PDFs, automated analysis of PDF files is more complicated than the analysis of those raw email content. Obfuscation, password protection, there's a variety of other measures that can further thwart these defenses, and it resides within the embedding of that content, that malicious content, within the email itself, or within the PDF itself. Excuse me. In business settings, for example, as I was mentioning before, legitimate PDF attachments are common, right? And it's not just in businesses; it's in school environments, it's in financial institutions, it's everywhere. So this, because of the wide usage of this, it is a very obvious and apparent attack vector that malicious actors can use to avoid detection and ultimately successfully deploy their exploits. I know Max had mentioned Crackbot earlier too. So notably, those operators have been very quick to experiment with multiple different types of exploits and adopt different delivery mechanisms in the past several months. So specifically within this past quarter here, and that's why he highlighted it. Their use of PDFs in the previous quarter, to us, it signals that not just the Crackbot operators, but really, all threat actors, seeing the successful implementation of exploits within PDFs, we believe all threat actors are going to continue to use this and actually increase their activity. So going forward, I think that we can, we need to remain vigilant in our development of new tools to decrypt any of the content that's embedded within there, to break the passwords on there as best we can. And unless it is absolutely necessary or expected to, obviously, train our end users to, not just open the PDFs, not click and follow on any of the links within the PDF. Again, training of the end users is always very important there. But we, especially now and for the second half of this year, we do anticipate that the exploits delivered via malware or via PDF are going to continue to increase. All right, so that constitutes our top three predictions here, and we're going to transition into the question and answer portion. And I know we have quite a few attendees today, so thank you everyone for attending. And I see we do have a few in here, so let me just see a good one to answer. Well, I think that one of the major topics here that we covered today was dealt with machine learning and AI for quicker curation of content that we can deploy, or that threat actors can deploy to hopefully obtain a successful phish. So I have a question here that asks, how do you think ChatGPT is going to interact with our predictions, the tailored content enabling large-scale phishing? And I already kind of started to answer that question in the predictions. So I believe that it's not necessarily a new capability. It is a new method that serves as a force multiplier for how threat actors are generating their content and even deploying them. So for those of you that are unaware of these large language models and their function, it basically creates more natural language outputs to really any prompt, and that's specifically for ChatGPT. But there's also other image generation platforms as well. So when you look at the capabilities of those two, and again, it's not necessarily new concepts, but the advent of AI in this current year, enabling and giving access to anybody essentially. This has really caused the increase in that traditionally sparse spear phishing type activity. So I believe that yeah, it's pretty obvious. The prediction here is that we're just going to see more and more volume of curated content to include images, and across larger campaigns, not just the targeted ones at some of the spear phishing, traditional spear phishing targets. So Max, did you want to add any flavor to that as well?
Honestly, I think you about covered it. ChatGPT is, I mean, it's big and scary, but the things it does as a baseline aren't new. It just does them more easily.
Yeah, that's really the crux of it, and that ease of use, or that quicker time to get the output, I think is really just the enabler there. So yeah, that's great. Okay, yeah, we've got a lot of other questions here as well. So let's see. Wolf asks, what are some of the most common email lures? And I think Max, I'll pass the mic to you on this one since you are neck deep in the data every day.
Sorry, I'm trying to find the question. So overall, the most common lure in general is just notification themed. If y'all are customers, you might have noticed in our reports, typically the most common campaign header you're going to see is notification, because so much of it is notification, like, oh, your inbox is full, or your account's expiring, or some kind of urgent notification that you have to act on right away. That's a popular theme because of that sense of urgency. I mean, it's really just, it's all about giving that sense of urgency. With malware, you're a lot more likely to see finance-related things requiring you to actually download and interact with something instead of notifications, because with notifications, they want you to input your credentials or something like that. But with an invoice they've sent you, you need to download the invoice and actually open it. So you see a bit of a difference in there depending on what they're delivering. One of the more common ones that we've seen getting through SEGs that has been annoying to me personally is we've been seeing emails that are being sent in response. So they'll contact somebody and then they'll respond to that response to make it seem like it's a more legitimate email. And then they'll deliver a link to malware. So they're putting in a bit more effort, but it comes off as a lot more legitimate and is a lot more likely to bypass a SEG.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I think that that's an evolution of one of the traditional tactics, right? Which is create urgency, create importance, and thus not increase the level of comfort from the user's standpoint, but complacency, right? So the more urgent it is, the less likely somebody is going to take a moment to step back and think, hey, is this an expected email? Is this an expected message? Is it legitimate? That urgency, I think, mitigates some of the safeguards and the gut checks that an end user would hopefully obtain with further with additional time to actually look at it, to analyze it, and make sure that it is coming from who they believe it's coming from. Okay, so we'll move on to the next question here from John. Is hello, regarding the malicious content in PDFs, are these just malicious links? No, I can definitely say they are absolutely not just malicious links. There are a lot of them though, and it's not just the well, it is the embedding of links technically within PDFs, but we see a lot of stage 1 into stage 2 which is those command and control server callouts and the redirects that do the credential stealing via like the man in the middle. So really, the PDF, as I was mentioning earlier, is kind of in addition a very enticing vector for threat actors to open the window into the rest of their attack. So Max, again, do you want to add something more? Is it just malicious links, or is there other stuff within there?
I will say recently we've actually been seeing a fair number of QR codes embedded in PDFs, because there's tools out there that can extract a URL from a PDF, but there's not really any tools that are used by SEGs to extract QR codes from PDFs and then follow the QR code. So we've been seeing a lot of those, and those are also a lot more, I personally believe they're a lot more of a concern, because you end up visiting malicious sites on your phone, which is a lot less likely to have protections than if you're, say, visiting a malicious site on your browser on your work computer that's got some sort of protection that's actually going to detect what you're doing and stop you from going to the site. Whereas on your phone, you got nothing. I mean, you're going to have a bad time. So we've seen that. We haven't seen it recently, but in the past, we have seen PDFs with embedded files, like a JavaScript file, that when you open the PDF, it pops up a little window asking if you want to enable something. And if you click yes without paying attention, you'll run a JavaScript file in the background that'll download malware. So PDFs can do just about anything.
Yeah, that is really true. I know that, way back in the day, maybe, but still active today and relevant today, we saw a lot within spreadsheets. And I think that the only reason why we've seen a decrease in spreadsheet files, XLS, XLSX, why we've seen a decrease in the utilization of those is because it's kind of less common to send spreadsheets as attachments. In favor of, there's a variety of reasons why, in my opinion. There's, in favor of cloud hosting for your files. If you're working within a business, you likely have a cloud environment, shared drive, for example, that would, that you could jointly access a file in a trusted location. PDFs, though, have always been a more flattened file, a containerized file that can have that can host all of these malicious softwares and links. But it's additionally, what really kind of amplifies this and the usage of PDFs here that we've seen is that it is expected, right? You think how is an invoice sent across via email? It's often via PDF or an invoice or a quote for services. These are, when I say expected, these are normal things that you would see within your daily business operations. And so that right there increases the level of complacency, not incorrectly, but that's why you're starting to see some of this, a lot more success and a lot more utilization of PDF as the attack vector. Okay, so let's see. So I've got another question here that Max, I think that you might be best equipped this one too, or best equipped to answer this one. How can you find the phishing that passes multi-factor authentication, and what are the key indicators from within the phishing page? And that is a great question, because I think we've all been there, right? The success of phish is apparent, and whether we want to admit it or not, we've all at some point clicked on a link and hopefully immediately thought, "Oh shoot, should I have clicked on that?" Or this took me to a location that I did not expect. So yeah, how do you as a security organization or a SOC, how do you find those phishing emails that are specifically bypassing that multi-factor authentication, so that you can hopefully get ahead of that?
So there's a few ways. Our strategic analysis on MITM phishing has a lot of a better breakdown, as well as some like mitigation stuff you can do. One of the ways that you can do is maybe not something every user would know how to do, but if you can open your developer tools on your browser and you enter fake credentials, and you'll see where it's posting the credentials to and where it's getting information from. So if it's like sketchy place or yourcompanyname.sketchyplace.com, and then you see, it's contacting Microsoft from that website, then something's going on. Like, you shouldn't be seeing external contacts to Microsoft from that page. It should be all doing it internally. If it's passing things through, then it's going to be acting as a gateway. It's going to be taking your input, passing it to Microsoft, taking Microsoft's input, passing it back to you, and harvesting the credentials and using that to bypass MFA. If you don't have developer tools open, honestly, if you just look at the bottom of your window in certain browsers, it'll show you what URL is currently being reached out to. And if you see it's reaching out to some kind of Microsoft thing when it's not on a Microsoft domain, then that's just something to keep in mind, something to look for. Other than that, all the ones that do 2FA will pop up and ask you for your two-factor authentication. One of the things that they won't do, though, is they won't know what your cell phone number is or anything like that. So if you've got a multi-factor authentication option to send a code to my phone, the phishing page is not going to have that. So if you just say, yes, send the authentication code to my phone, and you never get it on your phone, chances are it's a phish.
Yeah, so while the techniques have become more and more sophisticated, and as we predict, continue to get more and more sophisticated and easier to create through some of these these tools such as AI, I think that there is still some levels of unsophistication within the attack chain. Broken processes such as not receiving the correct notifications on the correct platforms that you designate, or just not having that designation. From a SOC perspective within an organization, it is difficult, and that's why you have to use technology as an enabler. I know it sounds kind of like a general response, but seeing things like redirects. Redirects are a pretty dead giveaway and a very common tactic that is used here. So like Max was just highlighting, when the initial landing location is a suspicious domain, and then it redirects to a legitimate one. It's the same process that's used in like DoubleClick and like ad tech for logging clicks. But the users, or the malicious actors, are using that same process, just with their man in the middle to capture the credentials there. So in your analysis of network traffic, you're going to have to get smart about identifying perhaps not previously seen domains and redirecting to legitimate domains. Historically, attackers weren't very good at dumping the end users to the expected location. So that really served as a trigger warning for, hey, I think something went wrong here, or maybe I was a victim of a phish because I didn't get to where I was expecting to go. I entered my credentials, but it went to a blank page, or a 404 error or something like that. Attackers have actually gotten very good with at the end of that chain dumping the user to the expected location. So if they wanted to log into Gmail, and they were at that malicious man in the middle domain, entered their credentials, they would then be dumped at the end of that to the Google Gmail login page. And really, the only suspicious thing would be, well, hey, why do I have to enter my credentials in again? And again, hopefully your end users are able to report that. But from an automated or more automated analysis standpoint, from the SOC's perspective, you would need to write the rules to actually try and identify instances of those multi-redirects there. And it's honestly, it takes some human analysis to identify whether those redirects are legitimate or not, because a lot of these legitimate services are using redirects for their own purposes as well. Also, that is another reason why Cofense Intelligence here has been so successful over the years, is because we do provide that human intelligence, that human analysis look, and our intelligence threat feeds will highlight just the malicious domains, so that you can use those to update your rule sets as well. So that's just an example, and a little plug for what we do, but also the reason why we have such good analysis of the data here that we've presented today. Okay, so we are coming to the end of our time, but I know we have a couple more questions in here, and I do apologize that we are going to run out of time and not be able to answer all of your questions, but I'll see if I can at least get one more in here. Let's see. So how is Cofense dealing with all of the Microsoft changes coming? Are you making headway in that area? Well, I'm not sure specifically which changes you're referring to. Probably the authentication changes. I'm going to answer this probably in a more broad sense than just Microsoft as well, because there are a lot of changes coming to the authentication environment that are going to affect things within the phishing landscape for the better, I believe. One big notable example is the use of passkeys and how those are replacing passwords. This is a good thing, in our opinion. Passwords are an antiquated technology, and as all of us know, I think that the running joke has always been, you can tell how long somebody's been in an organization because they just add another number at the end of their password every time they have to update it. That doesn't increase the security of their accounts or their credentials. And when a phishing attack happens, the credential phishes obviously are going to directly steal that information. But the passkeys, for example, is a more complex process that basically by default enables multi-factor. And with that, I think we are going to see perhaps a temporary drop in the success of exploitation via credential phish and even malware implant. But I believe it's only temporary, because as we've seen over time, these threat actors, they get creative, right? When you stop them in one avenue, they find a way around it, or they find a unique and novel way to accomplish their ends. So increased security is always good, but it should not cause additional complacency. Increased security does not mean increased complacency. It's training of the end users. It's continually updating our threat models by leveraging intelligence within our security apparatus within our companies. And Max, did you want to add anything to that from your perspective as well?
No, that pretty much handled it. I will say that, because they found a way to bypass multi-factor authentication, it's only a matter of time before they find a way to bypass other things. But if you look at how long it's taken them to find an easy to deploy kit to bypass multi-factor authentication, we'll probably have a bit of time before we need to start freaking out all over again.
Very well put. Yes, I agree wholeheartedly as well. But that's I think the most important takeaway from all of this is that countering phishing threats is a constant battle, right? And obviously we are up for the challenge. We enjoy doing it, but it is not a one-size-fits-all solution. It is not a set it and forget it solution. This needs to be the data needs to be constantly analyzed. Our models need to be constantly adapted and implemented to increase our security posture. So with that, we are at the top of the hour. I greatly appreciate everybody who was able to attend today and contribute to the conversation via the Q&A here. Again, I do apologize for any of the questions that we weren't able to answer, but we will have someone reach out to you and follow up to answer those questions for you. I would also like to one more time point you towards the report that we published for our quarter two trends analysis report that will provide a lot more detail of some of the topics that we discussed here today. So, Max, did you have anything final in closing?
No, that's it. Just one last plug. Everything I gave you was the brief version. So if you want more, just check out the strategic analysis. We've revamped ThreatHQ not long ago, so it should be pretty straightforward to find them.
Yes, great point. And as always, visit cofense.com for additional information on some of our, that you can read via our blog posts, and some of our reports are published there as well. Again, thank you everyone for attending, and stay safe out there.